Simone Biles speaking like never before about the mental health struggle that forced her to withdraw from events at the Tokyo Olympics and the years of trauma that led up to that moment.
A hospital wristband. A husband 3 states away. And a caption that ends with the words, "Almost dying wasn't on my bingo card." That is how the summer of 2026 introduced itself to Simone Biles, and it is not the story anyone expected to be telling about the most decorated gymnast in history. For most of her adult life, Biles has been treated as something close to indestructible. She redefined what a human body could do in the air, put her name on 4 skills in the official code of points, and walked away from 2 Olympic Games with a combined haul that placed her among the greatest athletes the United States has ever produced. But indestructible was always a myth built for television, and 2026 has spent the last several months quietly dismantling it. To understand why this year feels different, it helps to go back to Tokyo. In July 2021, during the team final, Biles attempted a vault and completed roughly half of the twists the routine required. She landed awkwardly, walked to the sideline, and within hours USA Gymnastics confirmed she had withdrawn. The explanation that followed introduced much of the public to a phenomenon called the twisties, a disorienting loss of spatial awareness mid-air that, at the height and speed Biles competes, carries the real risk of catastrophic injury. She withdrew from 4 more individual finals, returned only for the balance beam, and left Tokyo with a silver and a bronze instead of the sweep many had predicted. She later described those days as some of the loneliest of her life, telling interviewers that after leaving the athlete's village her body simply gave out on her, and that she spent roughly 10 days physically sick afterward. What came next was, by any measure, one of the more remarkable second acts in Olympic history. After nearly 2 years away from competition, Biles returned in 2023, won an 8th world all-around title, and arrived in Paris in the summer of 2024 as a woman rebuilding rather than defending a legacy. The redemption was emphatic. She won 3 golds and a silver at the Bercy Arena, pushed her Olympic medal count to 11, and drew a standing ovation for a floor routine that reminded the world exactly why she had never really lost her claim to being the greatest gymnast alive. She competed through a minor calf strain in Paris without pulling out, a small detail at the time that, in hindsight, said something important about a body that had absorbed more than a decade of elite-level punishment. After Paris, Biles stepped back from competitive gymnastics without an official retirement and without a timeline. In interviews since, she has spoken about needing her physical and mental health to align before any return, and about the decision to compete again at the 2028 Los Angeles Games being entirely her own to make, whenever she is ready to make it. What she did not step back from was public life. Throughout 2025 she remained a fixture at award shows, on podcasts, and across social media, appearing at the ESPYs in a custom gown, traveling with her husband, Indianapolis Colts safety Jonathan Owens, and generally presenting the image of a champion enjoying a well-earned pause. That image cracked in June 2025, when Biles waded into one of the most polarizing debates in American sports. After former college swimmer turned commentator Riley Gaines criticized a Minnesota high school softball team for having a transgender pitcher on its roster, Biles responded publicly and sharply, calling Gaines a bully and mocking her physically in a way that read, to many observers, as needlessly personal. The backlash arrived from multiple directions at once. Biles apologized within days for making the exchange personal, acknowledged that the remark about Gaines's size was out of line, and said the broader question of how sports should balance fairness and inclusion deserved a more careful conversation than a social media fight could offer. Gaines accepted the apology but did not change her position, and the disagreement lingered online for weeks, splitting Biles's own fanbase into people who felt she had defended a vulnerable athlete, people who felt she had been unnecessarily cruel, and people who felt she had abandoned her original point the moment the criticism got loud. When she closed her ESPYs acceptance speech weeks later by invoking the power of sport, the power of community, and pointedly, the power of she, more than a few viewers read it as her drawing a line back in the sand. Then came October 2025, when Biles used TikTok to disclose that she had undergone 3 cosmetic procedures, a breast augmentation, a lower blepharoplasty, and earlobe reconstruction. She framed the disclosure as consistent with the transparency she had always tried to offer her audience, telling interviewers that young women deserved the right to make decisions about their own bodies without shame attached. She also mentioned, almost as an aside, that she had tried Botox once, watched it misbehave during gymnastics training, and had no intention of repeating the experiment. The augmentation in particular drew attention from people who follow the sport closely, because implants of any meaningful size can shift an athlete's center of gravity and affect rotational speed and balance on apparatus like bars and beam. Surgeons who spoke to outlets covering the story noted that with proper conditioning such an adjustment is possible, but the questions it raised about a potential comeback did not disappear quietly. All of that, in isolation, might have simply been the ordinary turbulence of a public figure navigating life after competition. Then June 2026 arrived, and the story stopped being ordinary. On June 6th, Biles posted an image to her Instagram stories showing her wrist wrapped in multiple hospital bands, accompanied by a caption that described the week as one of the scariest of her life and referenced almost dying while her husband was away at preseason practice with the Colts. She thanked friends for visiting and sending flowers, said she had spent the week resting in bed, and promised to explain what had actually happened at some later point. That explanation never fully arrived. No diagnosis was named, no timeline for recovery was offered, and representatives did not respond to outside inquiries seeking specifics. For a woman who has spent years being unusually candid with her audience, the silence stood out. She kept a public schedule anyway, appearing at the 2026 ESPYs in New York in mid-July and later traveling to the Dominican Republic, looking by all outward appearances like someone in good health. Then, on July 22nd, her husband's 31st birthday, she posted a black and white photograph of herself in a hospital gown and hair cap, seated on a bed with Owens beside her, captioned only with a joke about waking from the procedure singing a song by the rapper Bossman Blow. Once again, she declined to say what the procedure was or whether it connected in any way to the emergency from 6 weeks earlier. The timing has made the silence harder to ignore, not easier. Biles's Paris teammates have spent the summer moving forward without her. Suni Lee announced her own competitive comeback in mid-July, joining Jade Carey and Hesley Rivera, who had already declared their intentions to return, while Caitlin Ohashi made her way back to the competition floor after 13 years away from the sport. Biles herself was seen meeting with longtime coach Laurent Landy in July, a detail she shared publicly and one that suggests the door to Los Angeles 2028 has not been closed, even if no one, including perhaps Biles herself, knows exactly how far it might open. What remains unshaken is the scale of what she has already built. 11 Olympic medals, 30 World Championship medals, for skills that carry her name in gymnastics official code, and a net worth estimated around $25 million driven far more by endorsements with brands like Athleta Visa and United Airlines than by the modest prize money elite gymnastics actually pays out. None of that is in dispute, and none of it is going away regardless of what she decides next. But legacy and future are not the same currency, and right now they are pulling in different directions. The Biles who stood on the Paris podium less than 2 years ago looked untouchable. The Biles of mid-2026 is a 29-year-old carrying the accumulated wear of more than 2 decades in elite sport, an unexplained medical emergency, a follow-up procedure nobody has named, and a public controversy that never fully cooled down. Whatever comes next, whether it is one more extraordinary comeback, a quiet and considered retirement, or a life built entirely outside the gym, it will not be decided by nostalgia for what she once was. It will be decided by a body and a mind that have already given more than most people ever will, and that, for the first time in a long time, seem to be asking her to slow down and listen.